Hi, this is Jake Navarro, and I'll be examining the fragile masculinity of the movie La Caza. Carlos Saura's 1960 film, La Caza, also known as The Hunt, is a critique of the masculine culture and the damaging effects of social pressure on individuals. The film is set in Spain during the Franco dictatorship, where three former friends reunite for a weekend of hunting in the countryside. As the weekend progresses, tensions rise, and the hunting trip turns into a violent confrontation between the men, exposing their deep-seated conflicts and insecurities. As the men become more aggressive and competitive, their underlying resentments and anxieties begin to surface, and they begin to turn on each other. The once civilized excursion quickly devolves into a violent and primal struggle for dominance, as the men's innermost fears and desires are brought to the surface. As the hunt draws to a close, the men are left emotionally scarred and physically battered. Having been stripped of their illusions of camaraderie and brotherhood, the film ends with a haunting image of Paco, the most aggressive and violent of the three, stalking the woods with his rifle, suggesting that the cycle of violence will continue. Next, we're going to look into the year 1966. Carlos Saura's film La Caza is significant for coming out in 1966 because it was released at a time of significant social and political change in Spain. At the time of the film's release, Spain was still recovering from the trauma of the Spanish Civil War from 1936 to 1939. And the subsequent dictatorship of Francisco Franco, which had lasted from 1939 until his death in 1975. During this period, censorship was widespread and political dissent was often met with violence and repression. Against this backdrop, La Caza can be seen as a powerful critique of the masculine values and behaviors that often accompany hunting and other violent activities, as well as a commentary on the psychological effects of trauma and violence. The film's exploration of the inner lives of its characters and the way in which repressed emotions and desires are brought to the surface can be seen as a metaphor for the way in which society has been traumatized by political conflict and repression, can become morally decayed and violent. Furthermore, La Caza's significance for his innovative cinematography and use of sound, which were groundbreaking at the time and had a significant impact on Spanish cinema. The film's use of handheld cameras, jump cuts, and overlapping dialogue created a sense of realism and immediacy that were rare in Spanish cinema at the time and influenced a generation of filmmakers. Overall, La Caza is significant for coming out in 1966 because it offered a powerful critique of the social and political conditions of the time, while also pushing the boundaries of Spanish cinema and helping to usher in a new era of filmmaking. The release date of Carlos Saura's La Caza in 1966 is important to the age of the characters because it reflects the generational experience of the period in which the film was made. The characters in the film are middle-aged men in their 40s, who would have been young adults during the Spanish Civil War, 1936 to 1939, as mentioned before, and the subsequent dictatorship of Francisco Franco from 39 to 75. They would have grown up in a society that was marked by political repression, censorship, and violence, and would have experienced the trauma of this period firsthand. By studying the film in the 1960s, Saura is able to explore the psychological effects of this trauma on the characters, and to show how their experiences have shaped their worldwide and their relationships with each other. The hunt, which serves as a metaphor for the aggression, violence, and predatory behavior that lies beneath the surface of characters' seemingly civilized exterior, is a manifestation of this trauma and serves as a catalyst for the characters' moral decay and violent behavior. Overall, the release date of La Caza is important for the age of characters because it reflects the generational experience of the period and allows Saura to explore the psychological effects of trauma and violence on his characters in a nuanced and insightful way. The main metaphor of Carlos Saura's film La Caza is the hunt itself, which serves as a powerful symbol for the underlying aggression, violence, and predatory behavior that lies beneath the surface of human civilization. Throughout the film, the three middle-aged friends who go on the hunting trip become increasingly aggressive and competitive, and their underlying resentments and anxieties begin to surface. As they begin to turn on each other, the hunt takes on a darker and more ominous tone, and the once civilized excursion devolves into a violent and primal struggle for dominance. The hunt can be seen as a metaphor for the way in which human beings, despite their veneer of civilization and morality, are driven by primal instincts and desires that often lead to violence and destruction. By placing his characters in the context of a hunting trip, Sarra is able to explore the psychological effects of violence and trauma, and to show that the characters' repressed emotions and desires are brought into surface in the course of the hunt. Overall, the hunt serves as a powerful and multi-layered metaphor for the human capacity for cruelty and destruction, and for the ways in which the capacity can be unleashed by social and psychological pressures. The main metaphor of Carlos Sarra's La Caza in relation to the year 1966 is in the way in which it reflects the social and political tensions of the time, and the way in which these tensions could lead to violence and conflict. In 1966, Spain was still recovering from the trauma of the Spanish Civil War, and the subsequent dictatorship of Francisco Franco, which lasted from 1939 until 1975. During this period, political dissent was often met with violence and repression, and censorship was widespread. Against this backdrop, the hunt in La Caza can be seen in a metaphor for the underlying aggression and violence that lay beneath the surface of Spanish society in the 1960s. The middle-aged characters in the film, who would have been young adults during the Spanish Civil War, embody the generational trauma and repressed emotions that were prevalent in Spanish society at that time. Furthermore, the hunt can be seen as a metaphor for the ways in which social and psychological pressures can lead to violent conflict. The characters' increasingly aggression and competitiveness, fueled by the resentments and anxieties, mirror the ways in which political and social tensions in Spain could lead to violent outbursts. Overall, the hunt in La Caza serves as a powerful metaphor for the social and political tensions of the time, and the way in which these tensions could lead to violence and conflict. By exploring these themes in a nuanced and insightful way, Sarra's film provides a powerful commentary on the condition of Spain's society in the 1960s. Next, we're going to look into the prominence of Enrique. Enrique is a significant character in Carlos Sarra's film. He is one of three middle-aged friends who go on a hunting trip together, along with Paco and Jose. Enrique's character serves as a catalyst for the film's central conflict and is pivotal in the character's psychological transformation. Enrique is initially portrayed as the most confident and self-assured of the three friends, but he begins to unravel as the hunting trip progresses. He is constantly seeking validation from the others, and his insecurities and anxieties begin to surface in the face of the increasingly aggressive and competitive behavior. Enrique's character is significant because he serves as a foil for Paco and Jose, who become increasingly aggressive and violent as the hunt progresses. While they give in to their violent impulses, Enrique struggles to maintain their moral compass and resist the pressure to join in their destructive behavior. Ultimately, Enrique's character represents a struggle to maintain one's humanity and moral integrity in the face of violence and aggression. His inability to resist the pull of others' behavior highlights the insidious nature of violence and the ease in which it can spread and corrupt those who are caught up in its grip. Overall, Enrique's character plays a significant role in La Caza as a catalyst for the film's central conflict and as a representation of the struggle to maintain a moral integrity in the face of violence and aggression. Carlos Sarra's film La Caza can be interpreted for a metaphor for Spain as a wounded nation, still grappling with the scars of the Spanish Civil War. And the subsequent Franco dictatorship, the three middle-aged friends in the film, Paco, Jose, and Enrique, are all veterans of the Spanish Civil War, and their traumatic experiences during the wars continue to haunt them. The hunting trip they embark on can be seen as a metaphor for the quest for healing and redemption in the aftermath of the war. As the hunt progresses, the characters' repressed emotions and unresolved traumas come to the surface, leading to increasing aggression and violence. This can be interpreted as a reflection of the way in which Spain as a nation was struggling to come up with terms in the legacy of the Civil War and the Franco era. Moreover, the film is set in a rural landscape that has been scarred by human activity, further underscoring the sense of Spain as a wounded nation. The character's aggressive behavior towards nature can be seen as a reflection in the way in which Spain's natural resources were exploited and damaged during the Franco era. Overall, La Caza can be interpreted as a powerful commentary on Spain as a wounded nation, still grappling with the psychological and environmental scars of the Civil War and the Franco era. Through it is portrayed as the character's psychological struggles and damage inflicted on the natural world. The film serves as a poignant reminder of the ongoing legacy of Spain's troubled history. La Caza, in a Spanish film from 1966, directed by Carlos Saura, portrays the psychological breakdown of a group of men on a hunting trip. One American film that can be related to La Caza in terms of its exploration of toxic masculinity and a group of dynamics is Deliverance, directed by John Borman. This film follows four friends on a canoe trip in rural Georgia, where they encounter hostile locals and face dangerous situations that test their courage and morality. Similar to La Caza, Deliverance explores the fragility of male relationships and destructive consequences of group pressure and their mob mentality. Thank you.